Do you spell woah that way?
WOAH.
I married you? It's WHOA.
No.
Yes, yeah. I Googled it before I took this note, and I'm right, and you're all wrong. Portland, what is good? How's it going, everybody? You having a fun night? Woo-hoo! Man, it is a delight to be back here. It's been a minute since I've been in Portland. Last time I did a live show in Portland, it was on my birthday, which was super fun and cool. And I was in a ballroom where they filmed part of 50 Shades of Grey. So, slightly different vibe from here, but I'm very excited to be here. Give yourselves a round of applause for coming out to the show tonight. Got a fun double bill show here. First act, Noose Olympian. Second act, Potterless. All fun. Gonna be great. Half one pod, half the other. All good times. We're gonna be covering the first chapter of the fourth book in the PJO series, the first chapter of Battle of the Labyrinth, which is very exciting. And as I just finished it recently today, a roller coaster ride for sure. My heart is in many different places. But before we get into it, I have to bring out my guest because I don't do this alone. I can't go on this quest alone. So I am very happy and proud to be joined by someone that you know and you love, and I love as well, because it's my wife, Kelly. Kelly Schubert coming out to the stage.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good.
You want to tell everyone in Portland how much you love Portland while I fix my hair?
I love Portland. I really do. I've been here once before, and it was amazing, and I love Portland. Is that enough?
Yeah, no, that was perfect. We were here for a podcast festival years ago called Listen Up, where it was run by the Tourism Board of Portland, and the whole thing was to get podcasters to say nice things about Portland, and it worked.
It worked. To get podcasters and their wives to say nice things about Portland.
No, Kelly, every now and then, Kelly really wants, she's like, are they going to do another one of those? We had a good time. We went to Aviation Gin, and we went to Smith's Tea, and we went to, I don't remember where we ate.
We went to that breakfast place for your birthday. I think it was called Honey Milk. It was very good.
See, that was on our own, though.
Oh, that was on our own.
That was not,
Yeah,
the other
yeah.
stuff was paid for by the city of Portland,
was
which
really
is
cool.
why Kelly loves the city of Portland, because she just flew in and did a bunch of free stuff and ate a bunch of free things. She had a great time. She didn't have to do any work. She just chilled. But it was fun. We're actually staying at the same hotel that we were at last time, which is Undisclosed Hotel. And it's really good to be back, full circle. So we are here to cover the first chapter in the fourth book of the first series of Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Lots of numbers. Now, we've had you on the show a whole bunch, so we've asked you a whole plethora of questions. So I guess just because it is the first chapter of book 4, without spoiling anything, how did book 4 fare in your favorites, least favorites? Did you enjoy it? Is there some things you can say about it that won't ruin it for me and my coverage of it, which is my job, which is important for us since we file taxes jointly.
It is very difficult for me to make sure I don't spoil things for you. I generally just don't talk about it unless I'm on the podcast.
You have a safety group text thread with Stephen Parra and Johnny Frolickstein.
And we talk about it.
I need to say it to someone or I'll explode.
Yeah, pretty much. While I was reading the sequel series, I did a lot of texting to them. And I basically convinced Stephen Parra to start the sequel series because he hadn't done it yet. I like this book a lot. I think I've said before, it might be my favorite one.
Wow, high
With
praise.
no spoilers, I think that the imagery is very strong and it pulls you in this book.
Okay, well, speaking
in a vague
of getting
kind of way.
No, I love it. Speaking of getting pulled in, let's get pulled right into the first chapter, which is called I Battle the Cheerleading Squad. And before we get into the actual chapter, though, I did notice, and I need to take more note of this, the foreword in the fourth book, and I don't think I've read all of the forewords. The foreword that Rick wrote is to Becky, his wife, to Becky, who always leads me through the maze.
Aww.
It's choked up on page 0. But when I first read this chapter title, I'm always trying to guess what's going on. So my guess just jokingly here in my notes, I wrote, what is this? The alternate Sea of Monsters intro? And the first thing the narrator Percy says is, the last thing I wanted to do on my summer break was blow up another school.
I wonder what's going to happen.
No, yeah. So at that point, I didn't know that is, spoiler alert for the chapter, that was exactly what was going to happen. I thought he was just saying like, oh no, I'm back at a school again. Last time I was out of school, I blew one up. But no, he literally means, hey, guess what's happening in this chapter, guys? I'm going to blow it up. I really didn't have a big prediction about what fighting the cheerleading squad meant. My generic guess was, okay, this will be like the Lystrogonians where it's people disguised as a cheerleader, but we'll see how that all fares out. It's the first week of June, and Percy is in Sally's car, and he's in front of Good, with an E at the end, high school on East 81st. I did Google this, not a real school in New York City. There are some private schools along 81st. He didn't give the cross street, so it's hard to say exactly which one he's mimicking or which one, if it's inspired by anything. But there's a couple that are like right on the border there, which is nice, overlooking the water.
Yeah.
Could be a nice
Oh,
little
it's
vibe.
a really nice part of town. If you go to a private school there, do it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, what I realized only after this point is, Percy's in high school now. Oh, right. He was 14 before. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like high school Percy. It just feels like such a different leveling up. Like we're not dealing with a middle schooler now. He's in high school. He's a freshman. How was freshman year of high school for you? What was it like?
Haven't thought about that in a while. I think I remember liking most of my high school experience.
Yeah.
I went to the same school progression from kindergarten through high school. So I had a lot of friends from middle school and junior high that were all going to my same high school. I mean, I really liked it because it was like a step up in your sports teams and your band and like academics. And so it was like a step up in everything I enjoyed doing.
So you didn't move halfway across the country like I did, and then go from a co-ed school to an all-boys school.
No, it was much easier.
Not everybody had that same freshman experience. Okay, because that was for me, and let me tell you, super fun. Definitely a nice, easy transition to move from New Jersey to Texas and then go to an all-boys school that was 45 minutes away from where your parents lived. The social life just right off to a hot start for a young 14-year-old Mike Schubert. I got there eventually. It's fine.
My sister is 2 years older than me, and she was already going to the school. So I had already heard a lot about it and knew some of her friends, knew about some of the teachers. I know, I had it way too easy.
You played high school on easy mode. I played on mega expert. I was like the people who like play like a shooting video game on a DDR dance mat, where they're like, oh, I'm going to play Call of Duty, but just,
I'm pretty sure high school's hard for everybody, but yeah, I played on easy mode, I guess.
It's all fine. We ended up in good spots. Now, this school that he's going to is a fancy school, and Percy wonders to himself how long it will take for him to get kicked out, which, I mean, par for the Percy course. It makes sense. Now, what's very interesting is that it's not just any school, it's Mr. Blowfus's school.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was in schooling administration. I don't know
I
if
thought
they
he was a
mentioned
teacher.
it. I don't know if they mentioned it. I just know he was in the class with Sally in the seminar or whatever.
I thought we knew he was a teacher.
Well, if we did, whoosh, missed it. Percy's there for an orientation tour, and Paul is out front. Narrator Percy tells us that Paul convinced the school to take him on for 9th grade, despite Percy's track record of destroying every school that he's attended. And Percy also directly warned Paul, like, hey, dude, let me just level with you. This is a really bad idea. Like, I can't tell you too much, but I can tell you shouldn't do this. But Paul insisted that he would have him at the school. Now, this kind of reestablishes a earlier concern I had about Paul, which is the fun line of, is Paul the nicest person ever? Or is Paul a villain? And this is just like a multi-book con. And it's nowhere in between. And I'm stressed. Like, I can't. Like, there's not going to be a thing where it's like, oh, yeah, Paul's kind of fine. Like, he's either great and perfect for Sally, love him, great stepdad, or he's actually been plotting this the entire time. And I don't know. It's like, it's going to be interesting. So Percy checks with Sally that she hadn't told Paul the truth about Percy. And she confirms, and she said, yeah, it's probably in our best interest that we wait a little bit before we tell you that your dad is Poseidon. So she's dressed for a job interview in a blue dress, of course, and also heels. And we learn that camp is supposed to start the next day. And I thought that it would be very strange to have an orientation, not like an open house, but an orientation for people who are supposed to be attending the school that early in the summer. I did an orientation before my high school, but I feel like it was like a week or two before classes started. Is this something you ever had to do?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I remember we did Fish Week, and I don't know when that was.
You had it for high school too, not just
for high school we had something called Fish Week,
Yeah.
and it was like a week of like fun and games and
Okay.
like getting to know people kind of things.
Yeah, I don't think we didn't have a fish week. We had fish week during school, but that was like you got paired with a senior and then you got like semi-hazed. And one day was like a costume thing. You had to wear like a beanie with a propeller on the head, which like in retrospect, so good. Like that's so funny. And then you had the little rubber band elastic strap type thing around it to keep it on. And if you weren't wearing that, which was kind of
Really uncomfortable.
If you weren't wearing it though, the punishment that anyone in school got to do was like take it out and put it on and let me properly put your hat on for you and then snap it, which as a freshman sucked, but like in retrospect, that's so good. Like that's so, I fully support this now. Like that's very funny.
That is funny.
And then for the costume thing, I got dressed up. My senior Josh dressed me up. It was 2010, so very of the era. I was dressed up as Soulja Boy, carrying a boombox, playing Crank That Soulja Boy on loop, which again, like at the time, I knew this is great. Like Josh has a good head on his shoulders.
And also was not 2010. It was 2006.
2006, right. I graduated in 2010. I'm so old. Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, a thought that I had today was, I need new orthotics. That's how old I'm getting.
My Fish Week was camping, like legit camping.
Wow.
You went to a campground and you had to like share a tent with people, which like is really cool, but also
Sure.
like you're meeting people and you're camping and that's hard.
Yeah.
You're sharing a bathroom and
Yeah.
showers and making friends at the same time.
It's very intense.
Yeah.
No, I definitely didn't have a fish week. I did have an orientation, but the orientation was them just kind of like showing you around the school, kind of like what Percy's describing. And then they teach you about the classes. That's where I got scared out of taking Spanish because I grew up in New Jersey, took Spanish class once a week. Then I went to Texas and I overheard someone having a conversation about, can I immediately go into Spanish 3? And I was like, I should not take Spanish. That sounds really scary because they take it way more seriously in Texas. So then I took Latin.
And the origin
And it
story
helped.
was made.
It helped. I've sold a lot of merch. It helped. And also, yeah, it helped on the podcast. I guess. But anyway, Percy Jackson. Camp starts the next day, but he's here at orientation. He doesn't want to be here, obviously. Sally teases Percy a little bit about having a date after orientation.
I love this.
And Percy is truly in peak 14-year-old boy form. Because he says, it's just Annabeth, Mom. Jeez. And here is a separate note that I had. Uncle Rick spells G's with a J. I always spell G's with a G. How do you spell G's?
I don't spell G's that often.
I type G's a lot.
Really?
Yeah, just like when someone says something to you and it's kind of uncomfortable, like they're, oh, you know, I had a really tough day at work. My boss is mean, like, I don't know what to say except to be like, oh, geez, that's a bummer. You know, something like that. So I say G's quite a bit. And I always spell it with a G because kind of like gee whiz, but then you add a Z at the end for G's.
Sure.
I don't know. We'll have to release a poll of
have never.
if it's G or J. It could be like the woah versus woe, except if you spell woah, W-O-A-H, you're incorrect. Like
What?
you are super duper wrong.
What?
Do you spell woah that way?
W-O-A-H.
I married you? It's W-H-O-A. Whoa. That's how you spell whoa.
No.
Yes. Yeah. I Googled
No.
it before I took this note and I'm right and you're all wrong.
The crowd agrees with me, Mike.
Well, I guess my listenership is a bunch of young Gen Z dweebs. Because if you Google, is it whoa with an H first or whoa O-A-H, it basically says like the traditional, like official way is W-H-O-A. But a newer, more modern, more informal way of spelling it is
Okay, but
W-O-A-H.
when is woe ever not informal?
I use it in a business setting all the time.
This is my business
This
here
is
on
my
stage.
business. I had to
Whoa.
write whoa in the notes. Used it for my job. Anyway, Sally's roasting Percy. She tries to prove to Percy that this is a date by saying, she's coming all the way from camp to meet you. And Percy says, well, yeah. And she says, you're going to the movies. And he goes, yeah. And she goes, just the two of you. And he goes, Mom! And I really like this because I feel like before this point, he's been not really outwardly a grumpy teenager to his mom. Like, it's usually saved just for narrator Percy, where it's like, oh, grumble, grumble. My mom was trying to make me, be all cutesy. But now he's outwardly doing the, oh, mom. And I love it. It's so good. Rick is so good at writing annoying teenagers, which I'm sure he had a lot of experience.
I was going to say, he probably had some annoying teenagers.
Yeah. I wonder how old his kids were at this point, too.
Mm-hmm.
And what I just love, Sally, great mom. Great mom. Just this is the perfect level of mom teasing, where she's not doing anything over the top, but she is pointing out, like, someone is traveling far alone to go to the movies with you. I don't know if you've ever looked up date in the dictionary, Percy, but you would have this description there. So Sally finally relents. Percy then approaches the school, but he sees Mr. Blowfist talking to someone that he clocks immediately as Rachel Elizabeth Dare. And I'm very excited that she's back in our lives.
She's back.
Because I'd kind of forgotten about her, but when she was introduced as person with a canonical middle name, I was like, all right, she's coming. Like, there's no way that just side character is Rachel Elizabeth Dare. So I'm very excited that we only had to go like a third of a book without her, and she's back. I'm stoked.
Yes.
Now, narrator Percy doesn't make this reveal immediately, but he's really heavy-handedly lays it on, freckles, curly red hair, et cetera, et cetera. And also I read the final chapters like a couple days prior. So for me, I didn't have to wait, a year in between books. I was like, oh, right, I remember this person. So Percy asks Sally if the school has a side entrance. She says that it does, and he heads towards it, thinking that surely his luck couldn't be this bad. But then he follows up by saying, as the narrator, that he was about to find out that his luck was a whole lot worse.
Was even worse.
So he tries to sneak in, not incredibly successful at doing so, because there are cheerleaders at the side entrance as well. And this is kind of normal in terms of, like, my school, even though we didn't have cheerleaders because we were an all-boys school, we still had cheerleaders from the all-girls school welcoming at the door for open houses and stuff. I don't know if they were trying to, like, prove that girls would come to the school to the prospective all-boys. Like, don't worry, there's girls here sometimes when we have dances and sporting games and stuff. But we had definitely had cheerleaders at these open house type things. So I didn't find that too strange, but then we will learn that these cheerleaders might be a little different from your run-of-the-mill standard issue cheerleader. So they're very nice to Percy. One is blonde with icy blue eyes. The other is African-American with dark curly hair. And here's something that I didn't like that I think has gotten better in terms of writing, and this is just like a relic of 2008 or whenever this book came out. I didn't like that white girl was just default, we don't need to say her race, and then person of color was, well, we must clarify that this person's not white. It felt a little weird to be like, girl with blonde hair and icy blue eyes, and African-American girl with curly hair. Like, I did Google it, like, is this okay? And I think the general practice is now is like, you either go one way or the other. Like, either if you're going to say some people's race, say everybody's race, or just describe people in a way where you don't have to. You can say like dark skin or something that makes it more open to interpretation.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point.
It's something I picked up on and then Googled, like, is this a thing before I say this on my podcast that lots of people listen to? So the blonde one gives him the classic Southern hospitality intro of saying welcome, but her face reading, ew, I don't like this person. The curly-haired girl steps up very close to Percy, and he can see her name embroidered on her jacket, which reads Kelly with an I. Ugh. As a Kelly with a Y, spelling it the correct way, what is your thought on Kelly with an I? Have you run into any? I've never met a Kelly with an I, but it just feels gross. Apologies to any Kelly with an I's in the crowd or listening. You're lovely and wonderful, and you spell your name definitely correctly.
I don't know. I mean, I met like some Kellys on opposing soccer teams, and I never asked them how they spelled their names.
Okay. It doesn't feel very common. It's not like my sister Megan. There's many different ways to spell Megan. And she's very passionate that her way is the only true way, Meghan. She recognizes that Megan, Megan, like, there might be some Megans in the crowd now. I know there's Megan, but she goes, your name is Megan. Like, it's spelled the same way. Like, sorry. And then there's some Megans, and I know some Megans who spell it this way, Meagan. She's like, now you're just Megan. She was very insistent that Meghan is the one true way to spell Megan.
I think all Kellys are welcome.
Okay.
I mean, not Kellys who like might be monsters or
not this
but,
particular
like, you know.
Kelly, but sure, spell it how you wish.
Yeah.
So she spells it Kelly with an I, and narrator Percy notes that she smells like roses, but also freshly washed horses, which is awfully specific. And I'm just waiting for Disney to make the Percy Jackson themed candles where you can get one that is roses and freshly washed horses. The Battle of the Labyrinth collection by, I don't know, who's the Yankee Candle Company? Yeah. Now, at this moment, I'm thinking, Percy, run away. Did you not see what the chapter title is called?
Right.
Get out of here. Kelly takes the more direct approach, which I will call, in contrast to the Southern hospitality approach, she takes the New Jersey approach, which is just going right up to Percy and saying, "What's your name, Fish?" And he is confused about the fish of it all, and she explains Fish is a nickname for freshmen, which I also never got when we had Fish Week. I was like, I guess that's kind of close to freshman, but not really.
You know, I don't know the etymology of that. Yeah. No idea.
Not sure either. But he says his name is Percy, and then they say, "Oh, Percy Jackson, we've been waiting for you," which worries Percy, but also I'm like, okay, there is a chance that they're regular cheerleaders and they have a name list of everybody, and Percy's not the most common name, so like, it's not out of this world that they could have been regular people that just knew, right, there's one Percy and he's Percy Jackson. I was leaving all doors open. I was giving the cheerleaders the benefit of the doubt. The chapter title could have been a misdirect, but it's not.
Also, at this point, he's blown up some schools. They may have actually heard of him.
Also true. The other reason I was giving them the benefit of the doubt is when there are monster types that call him by name, they always call him Perseus. And they called him Percy. So I thought it could just be, you know, attendance list kind of stuff. Now, Percy does get creeped out by the phrase, and he's also creeped out by the way they are looking at him, and also the way that they are blocking the door, not necessarily greeting people in. They're kind of not moving, so he's made initially uncomfortable. But then Paul Blowfist saves the day. He calls for Percy, and Percy excitedly tries to scurry past the cheerleaders. But when he does, he accidentally knees Kelly in the thigh, and it makes a clanking noise, which surprises him because he looks down, and it looks like she has just a leg made of flesh. So he doesn't think, well, I don't know, she could have like a prosthetic, right? So he looks and he goes, okay, flesh leg, got it. That shouldn't make a clanking noise. So he notes to himself, strange that it did make a clanking noise.
I don't know how you accidentally knee somebody in the thigh. We could try it later.
Maybe you're too, I'm trying to think, you've never done it because you're 5'1" on a good day. As someone who's taller.
No, we're not trying the reverse. You're not kneeing me in the leg.
That's like what I'm saying is there is a situation. Percy might be taller than Kelly, and then he kind of like, he could like walk and he could. I mean, that is kind of high though. He would. I mean, maybe he's like, maybe he like really is like, like he really could be getting it. He's like, hey, Paul, you know? So I think that's what it is.
He's got real chaotic energy. He's going in.
Well, he's 14. He's awkward. Like it's gonna happen.
Chaos.
You can't be 14 and not awkward. Like it's not. The Venn diagrams are overlapping. They're just one circle. So he continues forward. Now, when I was reading this, I realized, again, could be misdirect chapter title, might not literally battle them. Maybe it's just some awkward thing, but, you know, I was leaving the door open.
Battle.
You know, I was thinking like it could be like a pep rally. He gets called down. I was very generous with the cheerleaders. Mr. Blowfist is happy to see Percy, but he notes that Percy looks like he just had a run-in with a ghost. And when Percy looks back at the, as he describes as the narrator, weird cheerleaders, so I will be referring to them now as weird leaders, they are gone, so maybe they were ghosts. I was waiting for Paul Blowfist to say, we haven't had cheerleaders at this school for 40 years. Now, Paul says, quote, listen, I know you're nervous, but don't worry. We get a lot of kids here with ADHD and dyslexia. The teachers know how to help. And at this point, I'm thinking, Paul, I hope you're a nice guy. Because this sentence is either very cool, great school that does the proper thing of having different teaching methods for different learners. But on the flip side, Paul, if he is evil, has a very smarmy way of saying like, yeah, we have a lot of half-bloods that we bring into the school and then we murder, you know? So I gotta know if he's okay or not, because it's one of the extremes and I don't like it. I'm scared. Narrator Percy thinks Oh, if only Paul knew what my biggest problems were. This would put things way more into perspective. Percy reveals to us, as the narrator, that he is suspicious of the cheerleaders. And that, again, made me think, maybe they're normal. Percy's not often right about this stuff. But Percy then recalls another problem. Rachel Elizabeth Dare. He sees her, so narrator Percy then has this great line where he says, "Don't notice me, I prayed," and then there's a line break, and it just goes, "She noticed me." Uncle Rick's use of line breaks, so good, so good. Percy quickly asks Paul where orientation is, and he says the gym, and Percy just runs to the gym before Paul can say anything else at all. Now, there are 3 asterisk breaks in the book to really break it down into new scene. And that's when Percy, as the narrator, says, quote, "I thought I'd lost her." And this is just a masterclass in book formatting by Rick Riordan. We've got line breaks, we've got the asterisk breaks. Obviously, he has not lost her. No. So there's 300 kids crammed into the bleachers. There's a marching band that is not necessarily the highest caliber of marching band. You were in the marching band?
I was in marching band.
With clarinet.
Yes, I played
How
clarinet.
solid was your band?
We were good.
Yeah?
I mean, of course I would say that. I was part of the marching band.
I mean, did you go to like Texas State tournaments and all that?
Yeah, so in Texas they take it really seriously. There's a lot, like marching band is taken very seriously in Texas. And yes, we went to statewide competitions and placed in them, and we're good.
Do you have any like ribbons or trophies or medals?
Yeah.
Okay, next time we're going to your parents' place for the holidays.
Well, okay, no, I don't have them. It's like a 200-person marching band.
They don't give like individual.
No.
Oh, I mean, I guess that makes sense. But at least they could give you.
I have like other awards from being in band that I individually achieved.
Okay.
I was a soloist in the marching band one year, like played as a soloist on a football field. Oh, thank you.
Sounds pretty impressive.
Thank you very much.
Look, the clarinet playing you do in our apartment, pretty stellar stuff.
Thank you.
Those scales, top notch.
I know.
So 300 kids are crammed into the bleachers. The marching band, not up to Kelly standards. There are older kids modeling uniforms, trying to look cool, which means they are not looking cool. And there's teachers just kind of milling about, and there's walls covered in purple and white banners that read, "Welcome, future freshmen. Good is good." Good, good with an E is good. We're all family. And then Percy continues, and a bunch of other happy slogans that pretty much made me want to throw up. I knew once Uncle Rick decided that the name of the school was good, that there was going to be a dad joke in there, and I'm glad it happened. Now, all the freshmen look absolutely miserable because school doesn't start until September, but apparently, according to narrator Percy, put it good, quote, "We prepared to excel early." At least that's what the brochure said. Now, I bet from this perspective, because the June of it all is very weird to have it very conveniently be where the orientation's in June, school doesn't start until September, Percy starts camp the next day. It feels very convenient that the plot of the book will take place in the time between orientation and school. I bet Chiron is on the board of education for this school. And he's just behind the scenes pulling the strings. The plot. Orientation in June. Now, a man in a pinstripe suit, and of course, immediately I was like, Zeus? A man in a pinstripe suit begins to speak. Rachel Elizabeth Dare asks what Percy is doing here, and Percy just says, "Rachel Elizabeth Dare." And she replies, "And you're Percy somebody. I didn't get your full name last December when you tried to kill," in italics, "me." I love this. I love that she's back. I love that she's cutting right to the chase.
Yeah.
Right to the Annabeth chase. Rick, playing in the space of my books were so successful that I can now plan out books in advance. I like that while he was writing book 3, he knew she's coming back for book 4 because she really didn't do that much, but she was just interesting enough to make a return.
Yeah.
So I like that he is clearly established as, I know that I have a book deal that will last me to where I can plan ahead and not have to make a book fully self-contained. Now, Percy tries to clarify to Rachel Elizabeth Dare that he didn't try to kill her, but then he stops to ask her what she is doing here. And when she says the same as him, orientation, he asks, "Oh, you live in New York?" And she replies, "What, you thought I lived at the Hoover Dam?" Which is so good.
So funny.
It's so good. And narrator Percy admits, whenever I thought about her, but then he immediately clarifies, and I'm not saying I thought about her. She just crossed my mind from time to time, okay? I love narrator Percy arguing with the reader. Don't get any ideas, I don't like her. he just assumed whenever he thought about her, but not like that she lived nearby. And Percy's personality as the narrator is so fun. It's so like fun. Getting double doses of Percy. You really get to know who he is. Mm-hmm. And it's just funny that he would think anyone at a very famous tourist trap lives nearby. Like, people don't go across state lines to go to famous national monuments. Like, oh yeah, everybody that goes to the Statue of Liberty is from New Jersey because it's in New Jersey.
Oh, right.
It is geographically in New Jersey, but legally in New York. Whatever. Anyway, Percy Jackson. Narrative Percy says the following, quote, "We'd spent maybe 10 minutes together, during which time I'd accidentally swung a sword at her, she'd saved my life, and I'd run away chased by a band of supernatural killing machines. You know, your typical chance meeting," which is very funny because our relationship meeting was, oh yeah, went to the same college, weren't really friends together. Mm-hmm. I happened to be working abroad in Paris. You had a grad school 6th year study abroad thing in Paris. We had a mutual friend. We started hanging out. Now we're together. Just your normal meet cute kind of standard storybook.
I had another layer to that. Our parents lived 20 minutes apart.
Right.
And then on campus, we lived 5 minutes apart. Mm-hmm. Then we went to Paris and met each other there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And one of my best friends was dating and now is married to one of your best friends. Mm-hmm. We had I feel like
so many chances.
You know, like if whoever decided the plot, like God is looking down, like, how many times do I have to put these two nerds together? Fine, I'll send them to Paris. So someone in the crowd just said Aphrodite. Very good, very good. So someone behind them tells them to shut up because the cheerleaders are talking. That is a whack reason to tell someone to shut up. Hey, I want to listen to the girls in the skirts. Stop talking. Now, the blonde girl from before speaks, and she reveals that her name is Tammy with an I, which is way grosser. Apologies to Tammy with eyes listening or in the crowd, but the fact that they're both I at the end names, but it did make me more suspicious of both of them. Mm-hmm. Like the fact that they have linking names, I was like, okay, huge red flag. They're not just two girls at the school. Like, they're probably evil. So Tammy introduces herself and Kelly to the crowd, and Kelly then does a cartwheel after being introduced, and Rachel Elizabeth Dare yelps immediately after, and I thought, okay, something about the leg, because we know that the leg is a bit strange. We know that Rachel Elizabeth Dare can see through the mist, so I thought, okay, this cartwheel must have made her scared. The yelping was also a big key into me thinking this as well. Rachel Elizabeth Dare tells Percy to run, and Percy asks why, and she doesn't explain, but she starts to leave. And Percy hesitates a bit, but then Tammy kind of continues with her spiel. Kelly shoots Percy a smirk, kind of as if she wants to see what he's going to do. What's your move going to be? Percy stays put because he feels like it would be a bad look if he left, and it would make Paul sad, and Paul would get worried. But then he thinks about Rachel Elizabeth Dare's ability to see through the mist, and he goes, I should probably follow her. So he does.
I think that was a bad plan. Stay where the majority of the people are so they can't attack you. Or run farther than they did run. They didn't go that far.
Yeah, they don't do a good middle ground of running a little bit and then not completely leaving. Yeah. Not a great situation. But you do make a very good point. If you had just stayed with all the people.
Yeah, stay with all the people. Mm-hmm. Find a good moment to slip out when nobody notices that you're leaving rather than in the middle of all of it.
Right. I guess maybe he was going hero complex and he was worried about Rachel Elizabeth Dare a little bit. He didn't explicitly say that, but maybe he was trying to make sure she was going to be okay because maybe Kelly and / or Tammy would have gone after her.
Or maybe he's 14 and his decision-making skills aren't so great yet.
Good call. Good call. So Percy then finds Rachel Elizabeth Dare in the band room, and she calls him over to hide with her. She asks if he was followed by the weird leaders, but Percy says no, which, all right, Percy, and asks her what they are and what she saw. And Rachel Elizabeth Dare says that he won't believe her, and he says that he will because he knows that she can see through the mist. She asks, what's that? And he explains, but he slips up and ends this explanation by saying, quote, some mortals are born with the ability to see through it like you. And Rachel Elizabeth Dare calls him out for doing this again because he did that at the Hoover Dam. And she points out that he calls her mortal as if he's not mortal. And Percy kind of thinks, dang it, I am not smooth. I'm not good at this whole keeping it under wraps thing. So a frustrated Percy says that he doesn't think that he can or should explain all of this to her, but he gives it a go. He starts to explain that Greek myths are real. She keeps mentioning monsters by name, which freaks him out, and he tries to get her to stop doing it. And I just think it's so funny to see Percy, the kid who was like, names, whatever, saying them all the time. Now he's on the other end where he's like, please stop saying them.
Yeah.
I've learned the repercussions. I'm 3 books in now. But Rachel Elizabeth Dare is excited. She exclaims, I knew it. And then she asks Percy who he is, and he gulps and explains that he's a half-blood, meaning that he's half human. And she asks what the other half is, and of course, Kelly and Tammy enter before he can fully explain.
Of course.
Chiron, fist pumps in the distance. Yeah, the blood! Rachel Elizabeth Dare, when they enter, says, oh, they're horrible. And Percy asks what they look like, but she is too stunned to answer. And the weird leaders block the exit. Tammy hits Percy with a mesmerizing smile that causes him to think that she's gorgeous. And Rachel Elizabeth Dare calls out to Percy to snap out of it. And narrator Percy says, cool, I said something really intelligent like, He's just great around those ladies. Aphrodite in the last book. And now Kelly and Tammy here. Rachel Elizabeth Dare yells for Percy to snap out of it, and he finally is able to, and he uncaps Riptide. Tammy sneers and says that he doesn't need that and asks if he wants a kiss instead. And narrator Percy notes that she smells like roses and clean animal fur, which is a weirdly intoxicating smell to him.
So weird.
Very strange. Very, very strange.
So weird.
Rachel pinches Percy's arm and warns that they want to bite him. But Tammy says to Percy that Rachel Elizabeth Dare is just jealous and asks Kelly, who she addresses as mistress, may I? And Kelly approves. Tammy then approaches, and Percy points the tip of Riptide at her chest. And then she snarls and says, freshman, this is our school, half-blood. We feed on who we choose. And then she begins to transform into a vampire? And I was very confused. Because I've learned a little bit of Greek stuff from Dr. Moya McTeer. I didn't think vampires were in play for Greek things.
Is this the first time we've met these things? Which I actually can't say the word. I don't know how to say it.
I can do my best.
All right.
The empusai? No one's Greek in the crowd, apparently. But what we learn is that she's not a legitimate, just straight up vampire. You know, it's not going to be like, this is the skin of a killer, Bella. I've watched 0 minutes of Twilight, but I know how to make Twilight jokes. But I did learn about it from a presentation you gave once about it.
Presentation on Twilight.
Now, this transformation, she has one leg like a donkey and one leg made of bronze. Tammy is sensitive about her legs, though. And Kelly corrects that vampires are a silly legend based on them, Empusai, who are servants of Hecate, I think it is? Hecate? Okay, cool.
Darn it, I've lost it. I thought it was Tecate.
You thought it was Tecate, and at first I thought it was Hecate, like the beer, like Tecate. I was like, this can't be right. I know this isn't right. It's similar to when we were in Port Angeles, Washington, and we went on a winery and cidery tour, and we went to this cidery, and I'm a big fan of ordering drinks that have ingredients that I don't recognize. And in the cidery, they had cider made out of quince, the fruit. And I had never heard of this before. I'd never seen this fruit before. So I tried to order it. And I went to the lady and I said, can I have the quince cider? And this very snooty white lady went, you mean quince? And I was like, I guess so. I pointed to it, pronounced it super wrong, but like I didn't say raspberry. There's nothing else similar. Though she was so snarky about it. I was like, I don't know if I want this anymore, but I still want to know what the heck a quince is. And it was delicious.
It was good.
I was very upset. Anyway. They're Empusai, they're servants of Hecate. And I'm excited to ask Dr. Moya if this is a true thing, if vampires do have some sort of tie to it, or if this is just a creative Uncle Rick, Percy Jackson thing where they find a way to Greek explain some stuff, which I always think is fun. Either way, I think it's super cool.
Yeah, she's the one to ask there. I have no idea.
All right, moving on. Tammy explains that dark magic formed them from animal, magic, and ghost, and they feed on the blood of young men. She demands a kiss, and then Rachel Elizabeth Dare throws a snare drum at her head.
Nice.
Let's go.
Nice.
Big fan. I already liked Rachel Elizabeth Dare. I like that her instinct is, I'm going to chuck a drum at this person. Tammy knocks it aside. Rachel Elizabeth Dare then throws a xylophone. The diversity of the percussion section being thrown is great. Yet it's just perfect principles of improv. Joke A would have been throw a cymbal, but no, she goes for a xylophone. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Classic misdirect. Tammy swats that away too, though, and she says that she doesn't normally kill girls, but she will make an exception for Rachel Elizabeth Dare because her mortal eyesight is too good. So she lunges at Rachel Elizabeth Dare, and Percy slashes her with Riptide. She explodes into dust all over Rachel Elizabeth Dare, which grosses her out, but Percy then says, monsters do that, which I guess helps. Kelly is upset that Percy killed her trainee, and then she begins to transform. And the description says, her wiry hair turned to flickering flames. Her eyes turned red. She grew fangs. She loped towards us. Have you ever heard that word before? Is that just like a weird past tense of leaped? Loped? All right, we're going to do
I just skimmed right over that as I was reading.
I'm just going to Google loped because past
Like-
lope. To run or move with a long bounding stride. Okay, so similar to leap. All right, fun, cool.
New words.
Yay, look, hey, we're learning. And now it's going to be one of those things where tomorrow someone is for sure going to say it to us. And we're going to be like, I learned this word. So she lopes towards them. Narrative Percy continues. She grew fangs. She loped towards us, her brass foot and hoof clopping unevenly on the band room floor. And then she says, I am Senior Impusa. No hero has bested me in 1,000 years. And Percy, with a really solid comeback, goes, yeah? Then you're overdue. So good. Narrator Percy notes that Kelly is stronger and faster than Tammy, and after dodging some attacks, Percy puts himself in between her and Rachel Elizabeth Dare. Classic hero stuff. I like this. I really enjoy this. Narrator Percy notes that Kelly's form is switching in between cheerleader and demon in his eyes, and she can kind of pick up on this, saying, you don't even know what's happening, do you? Soon your pretty little camp in flames, your friends made slaves to the Lord of Time, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. It would be merciful to end your life now before you have to see that. And I thought, Lord of Time? That's either a new evil villain character or just a different name for Kronos. Because I feel like Kronos has something to do with time, maybe? Or I'm just thinking of chronological order. But I don't know if the Lord of Time is the new evil bad guy here, or if she's just referring to Kronos as the Lord of Time.
My response is, Interesting.
If it's a new person, if there's a new Lord of Time and he's not canonically wearing a big clock like Flava Flav, I will be furious. And I will write constant letters to Disney. When you get to season 4, you have to do this. Percy can hear a tour group approaching, which has Kelly excited. And I was thinking, why would this make her excited? Shouldn't she be worried because she's in monster form? And then once she starts to do her plan, I got really worried because she's doing a fake victim maneuver. She chucks a tuba at Percy. Very impressive. Tubas are large. She chucks a tuba at Percy. He and Rachel Elizabeth Dare duck, and it crashes through a window, and then Kelly yells, Percy, why would you throw that? And then she starts knocking over stuff, making a mess, blaming it on Percy. Percy tells her to stop, and she says that it's time to greet their visitors, and she rushes to the doors with her claws drawn. And Percy wants to stop her from getting there. He's trying to slash her before she can open the door. But Rachel Elizabeth Dare warns Percy, no, don't do it, because she is smart. And Percy does a slash, but it's too late. He can't stop what he's done. He can't stop the momentum. She opens the door, and then just before the sword connects, she quickly turns around and plays the helpless victim card, going, oh, no, wait, no. And then, whoosh. So he hits her. She explodes, but not just into dust. She explodes into flames. And it's a lot of flames. It's not just a little burst. It's the whole school, hallways engulfed in flames. Mr. Blowfist is leading the tour, which is the worst person to have leading the tour. And he asks Percy, what have you done? Kids go running and screaming, smart kids. And then the fire alarm goes off, and there are ceiling sprinklers going off. Now, as resident architect, does this tell us anything about the building, that it would have sprinklers in the ceiling as opposed to...
It's up to code, is what that means.
I don't know if it's like particular buildings. Like, you don't always see it. Is there a certain qualification that warrants having a sprinkler, or...
being up to code.
Okay.
Warren's having a sprinkler. Some buildings are not fully sprinklered. That's because they're older and have been grandfathered in and have other systems in place. But typically buildings now are all sprinklered. And there are some that are better at being concealed than others, and that's why you don't see them. Typically in schools, you do it cheaply, and that's why you see them in schools.
I think maybe.
Where are they?
I think this place is up to code.
I don't New York
I hope
code.
so.
Can we go back, though?
Yes,
to
sure,
when
of course.
she-
Oh, you didn't like Architect Corner with Kelly Beckman Schubert? Fine, Kelly Beckman Schubert.
I prefer Clarinet Corner. She just destroyed the clarinets. She pointed out that she destroyed the flutes and the clarinets specifically. I was very upset.
I missed that it called
I
out.
did not miss that.
Okay. Kelly picked up a music. Oh, when she was making a mess.
She was making a mess by knocking over all the
My
clarinets.
apologies. Yeah, Kelly picked up a music
Which
stand
are
and
super-
swiped a row of clarinets and flutes.
That hurt my heart so much.
And your sister played the flute, so
My
it
sister played
double
the flute.
hurt your heart.
Double hurt my heart. My clarinet is probably the most precious thing that I own. Her flute is probably one of the most precious things she owns. Sometimes, we would leave them in the band room because they're safe there. And then somebody just destroyed them all.
Note to self, Kelly likes her clarinet more than the wedding ring I got her.
One of
You didn't say one of for yours. You said my most precious and for my sister, one of her most. I could buy you lots of clarinets with that ring, Kelly. Anyway, Percy Jackson. Rachel Elizabeth Dare snaps Percy out of his bewilderment by saying that he has to get out of here. Percy knows that she's right because the mist will mess things up just enough where it's going to look really bad for Percy. And it's going to make it look like Percy attacked an innocent cheerleader and then set the school on fire. But I guess it seems more legitimate to blame it on him than the person who just died. And I don't know if she regular died and this was just what happens if you beat her in a duel, or if she did some sort of special maneuver where she set herself to self-destruct or something like that, set her death to dramatic setting or whatever.
It feels strange, though, that she's like, I haven't died in 1,000 years. And then it's like, I'm going to sacrifice myself to make his life difficult. It's
Right.
It seems off character.
Exactly. It made me feel like it was something where she's not truly gone. I feel like she might come back, but we'll just have to see. Percy knows that there is no way to explain it, so he just turns and runs, and he exits the school into an alley back on East 81st Street, and he immediately bumps into Annabeth, which had me very, very worried. She's in good spirits, thinking, oh, you got out early. Great, this will be fun. And even hits him with a playful, whoa, watch where you're going, Seaweed Brain, because he's kind of stumbling around as she catches him by the shoulders, which is very cute, unfortunately.
She's excited for their date.
Of course she is.
Yeah.
Percy notes that she looks ready for a good, chill time. She's in her classic Camp Half-Blood shirt. She's got the clay bead necklace. She's ready to go. I did find it confusing, though, because I'm assuming they're going to a mortal movie theater. Shouldn't she not wear a branded T-shirt that someone might ask about? Like, shouldn't she have a regular, or maybe the mist would cover
I was
it
going to say,
up?
maybe the mist covers it up.
Okay, where it just says, like, Camp Friends. Not Camp Half-Blood.
Just like camp.
Camp Full Blood. Camp Regular Human People. That would actually be a great merch item. Because everyone says, oh, you should do this. People will give me merch item suggestions, and then they will just suggest things from the book. And I'm like, I'm going to get sued by Disney. That's like big time suing. I'm not messing with the House of Mouse. So maybe if I make Camp Regular Person and it's just a horse instead of that would be really funny. It'd be really, really good. Camp Regular Person. Oh, okay, cool. That'll be good. This episode's not coming out till like January of next year, so I have a lot of time to prep. Anyway, Percy notes that she looks ready for just a chill afternoon, and that is not what has been presented to her. And that doesn't last long because Rachel Elizabeth Dare busts out into the alley as well, and she is still covered in monster dust. Narrator Percy says Annabeth's smile melted, which I just wrote, no, it's so sad. She frowns at Percy and asks what he did this time and who this girl is. Percy introduces them, and he identifies Rachel Elizabeth Dare as a friend, I guess. And Percy, you gotta be able to read the situation here. That is a very bad way to introduce Rachel Elizabeth Dare to Annabeth. Rachel Elizabeth Dare says hi, to Annabeth, and then she tells Percy that he's going to be in a heap of trouble. They start to hear the sound of police sirens getting closer and closer, so Annabeth tells Percy that they have to go. Rachel Elizabeth Dare demands that he tell her more about half-bloods and monsters, and he writes her number on his arm so that he can call her later to explain. A great move by her, but contextually, and how is she going to know? Because she doesn't understand the dynamic between him and Annabeth. What a bad look for Percy. To have a random girl write her phone number on your arm in front of your basically girlfriend. Oh, dude, it's so bad. Percy starts to protest about staying behind, but Rachel Elizabeth Dare says that she'll make up a story and spin it so that he's innocent. And she does have a track record of being good at lying, so I do trust her in this situation. Her and Grover are going to get along very well. I can just see it.
I find her so compelling because think about how horrible her life is, and yet she seems like this very positive, bubbly person. I mean, she sees monsters everywhere and thinks that she's going insane because nobody else sees them. And then she contains all of that inside and is still like a really like outwardly nice person willing to help a stranger who just blew up a school.
It's really nice. She really rolls with the punches. She feels like she would be great on the Camp Half-Blood improv team, the Laugh Bloods. She's very yes and. She's like, okay, sure. There's a guy running through the Hoover Dam being chased by evil skeletons. Yeah, I'll help him out. Why not? Percy tries to explain the situation to Annabeth. Annabeth is quite upset, justifiably so. She's upset, and she is especially upset that Percy told a mortal about half-bloods, one of the early rules. I mean, it could be Fight Club. You know, number 1, don't tell mortals about half-bloods. Rule number 2, don't tell mortals about half-bloods. He explains that she recognized him from the Hoover Dam, and that only makes things worse because Annabeth goes, "You've met before?"
Oh, my gosh.
Percy tries to say that he barely knows her, and then Annabeth, in a really sneaky, conniving move, I don't know if this was her plan or if it just set Percy up for failure, but she points out that Rachel Elizabeth Dare is kind of cute, and Percy, in the worst possible response ever, says, I never thought about it. You idiot! Like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I don't know. What else could he have said?
I mean, he is basically saying like, oh, you're right, girl I have a huge crush on. This other girl is cute.
No, he just said, I don't think about her that way. I interpreted it
what
as.
He should, yeah. Oh, no, I don't know. You can't admit that she's cute. You got to be like, what? No, like, she's hideous. I don't know. Maybe not go full lie. But he has to say something about like, he should have just said, you know what the correct answer is? What? That would have been the perfect response. Huh? What are you talking about? I don't know. I never thought about it. It felt too along the lines of like acknowledging her cuteness.
I actually read it and thought, that's a pretty good response to Dodge actually answering the question of, do you think she's cute? Because he did not answer the question.
Yeah, I guess it just felt like he was I don't know, man. I just thought it was bad. Like, I'm so invested in them getting together that anything that sets them off track has me really, really worried. Annabeth continues to walk off. She was already walking. She is storming off in a huff. Percy says that he'll figure out a way to deal with the school. Everything's going to be okay. Annabeth refuses to make eye contact with Percy and says, quote, I guess our afternoon is off. We should get you out of here now that the police will be searching for you. Awful. Just, devastating.
I mean, logistically, she's right.
Oh, yes.
But also it hurts.
Yes, it really, really does. It's so unfortunate. Narrator Percy then ends the chapter, and we'll end this episode with the following. He says, quote, behind us, smoke billowed up from Good High School. In the dark column of ashes, I thought I could almost see a face, a she-demon with red eyes, laughing at me. Your pretty little camp in flames. Your friends made slaves to the Lord of Time. And this could be real. Based on how dramatic her death was, she could still be in the smoke and she's going to reform. I don't know if this is the last of Kelly. I feel like it might not be.
I don't remember, actually.
Cool, perfect. But then Percy to Annabeth says, you're right, we have to get to Camp Half-Blood now, in italics, which is a fun ending to the chapter because that means, all right, cool, one chapter in, we're getting to camp, which is good. I like that it's a very no-nonsense book of, let's not waste any time, we know what you're here for, let's get to camp right away. Yep. But that's the end of chapter 1, and that's also the end of this episode of The Newest Olympian.
Yes.
And it's also the end of Act 1 of the live show. Woo! Hello and welcome to the first ever ad roll of the Labyrinth. I am very excited to get into this new era of mid-roll breaks with a really fun name. Shout out to all the folks who suggested names, but shout out to the one person who emailed me asking if I was going to make the name ad roll of the Labyrinth. You were correct. You and I have selected the best name possible, and here we are. Now, this is a special edition of the first edition of Adroll of the Labyrinth because I'm coming to you from New Zealand right now. I am in either Franz Josef or Franz Josef, New Zealand, depending on the pronunciation. I'm not exactly sure because it's Joseph/Joseph, Josef, which feels like you might the J, but I'm not really sure. But I am sure that I've got fun things to tell you about the podcast. First, speaking of New Zealand, we just had the show in Christchurch the other day, and it was so much fun. Everyone was so delightful. And we've got one more New Zealand show on the docket. That is on December 17th in Auckland, New Zealand. You can get tickets right now at thenewestalympian.com/live. The show's going to be half TNO, half Potterless, all good times. Get tickets right now at thenewestalympian.com/live and make sure you are following us on social media so you know exactly what chapters we'll be covering in that live show. I believe it will be all of chapter 6 and part of chapter 7. Now, speaking of live shows in other places, if you live in or near the Washington, D.C. area, you might want to clear the calendar for Thursday, March 9th. I don't know if tickets will be live quite yet by the time this episode goes live, but if you go to thenewestalympian.com/live, whenever those tickets are live, they will be there. They should be going on sale very soon, but I'm excited to return to D.C., which had a huge turnout last time I did a live show there, and I'm excited to do a full TNO only show there. Super stoked about that. And other live show stuff, I'm really trying to make a Europe tour happen early next year, around late March, early April. If you live in a major city in Europe and you know of a venue that's got about 100 to 200 seats, or if you happen to know someone who does tour promotion for this sort of thing, please send an email to thenewsolympian@gmail.com. I'm trying to put as much work into this as I can to make sure that I can visit as many cities as I can in a reasonable amount of time, but we're looking to do that to finally make the Europe shows happen. Live show stuff aside, there are two things in this episode that I do need to apologize for. There's two puns that I missed that while I was going over the edit, I heard the opportunity for it and I was crushed that Mike in the past didn't say. So at one point I said that Percy had to go on an orientation tour. Obviously that's torientation. And at one point I was talking about the tip of Riptide. Obviously that is tip tide. I'm sorry for these missed opportunities and I will do my best to not miss puns in the future. I don't want to let any of you down. One logistical note, once this mid-roll break is over, we will be doing some Q&A questions that were from the live show to close out the episode. So that is what you will hear once we get back from the break. And finally, an announcement that anyone can enjoy, not just folks that are in live show cities that I'm trying to come to. We have got new stuff going up on the Patreon. I just posted a bonus episode where I told a story from my Latin and high school days. Stephen Parra and I are going to do another Hades the video game stream once I'm back in New York in January. There's monthly live streams happening. There's extra content from the past couple of episodes that had to get cut due to time. So if you go to thenewsolympian.com/Patreon, you can join the Patreon and get access to all of these bonus goodies. And I want to give a shout out to the most recent folks who have joined the team. So shout out to our newest Mega God tier patron, Tegan Lovecamp. Shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Jade Marie and Emily Palmer. And shout out to our newest Demigod tier patrons, Nor the Nori, Jess Bennett, Francesca Mulvey, Emily Samoes, Aurea, and Veronique Leayer. Thank you all so much for your support. May Artemis bless you that when you see cute animals along the hiking trails that you're on, you have wonderful experiences with them and they're very cute and they don't get scared and you don't get scared and it's just wonderful and A+ stuff all around. Now, if you're all caught up on the Newest Olympian and you're looking for new podcasts to listen to, I make a whole bunch of shows. You can find out information about all of them at my website, which is Schubs, schub.es. One of those shows that I reference quite a bit is Potterless. If you have not checked out Potterless yet, I'm very biased, but I think it's great. Very similar in structure to TNO, but it's about the Harry Potter books. We went through all the books, we went through all the movies, went through all of the spin-off content, went through some fan-made content. Then there's been more improvised live show episodes posted to the feed. I'm still posting live shows stuff to the feed. Anytime we take a week off for TNO, I post another episode to the Potterless feed. So go check out Potterless wherever you get your podcasts or potterlesspodcast.com. The feed still has stuff getting posted to it every now and then, so it's worth a listen. And finally, before we wrap up here, you're going to hear words from from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of these ads will be read by me, others of them won't. The ones that are not read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in New Zealand, don't be surprised if you hear an ad for whatever incredible cider I had at the Christchurch show. It was this apple crumble flavored cider, and it was so good, and I need more of it in my life. I hope they sponsor the show at some point so that I can maybe get more of that. It was delicious. But anyway, once those ads are complete, we'll get back to this episode of the newest Olympian. Okay, let's see. First one. Okay, good. I figured this would be a question. Natalie asks, Kelly, what was the Twilight presentation about? You want to give some context?
So when Mike
and you can talk about my embarrassing moment from that night?
If you want me to.
Please do. I'm an open book.
So when Mike was moving to Seattle, he had 4 of us, 3 friends, and Mike get together, and we did drunk history Seattle based.
We had a drunk history party where we were all going to each learn a different thing about Seattle, get drunk, and then present to the other 3 what they learned. So I did a bunch of research about the Seattle Supersonics basketball team and when they got dramatically deleted from Seattle and pasted into Oklahoma City. And it was a whole presentation about why those people are terrible.
Yeah.
But Kelly did it about Forks, Washington.
On Twilight, because they're in Forks, Washington. They go to Seattle. And so I picked that as the thing I was an expert on. And I just went through the story for you. Book movie comparison, all the different spin-offs. Yep, that's what I did.
Yeah, the problem was that the point was to try to get to the right level of drunk, and I was having these drinks, but we had food beforehand, and I was just I wasn't feeling it, and then of course I had way too much to drink.
Yeah.
To where I remember, because you went first. Did we get through any other presentations besides yours?
I thought we did part of yours.
I think so, but then
I think it fell apart.
I think it
fell apart.
Right.
It went downhill fast.
It got to the point where I was getting sick, right? And that's when I blurted out, I love you, and I had not said it to you.
Yeah.
Was it the first time or did the other time I love you slipped out?
Mike
so it was the second time.
Being real particular about I must say I love you at the right moment.
I wanted it to be special, to be I want to say it at a cool place. We could be this is the place where I told you. Ugh. I didn't want to say it then.
I was I don't care when you say it, but you've got this idea in your head of what it needs to be. Sure. He's very drunk and I'm taking care of him. And he goes, oh my gosh, thank you. I love you so much. And I just laughed. I'm yeah, I know.
So yeah, that's what that fun presentation was about. We should try to run it back and
Oh, and do it correctly?
The safer way would be we should take some edibles. I know that. And honestly, giving the presentations high, I feel it would be way more fun.
It could be better.
Okay, this one is from, Madeline Heising, longtime producer of Patient. What's good? Okay. Hi, Madeline. I'm a Ravenclaw and a daughter of Athena. Tell us about those stylish socks. Oh, so previously I was wearing black and orange socks, which I wear to the T&O portion of the show because that feels like Camp Half-Bloody colors. They're actually the pattern. I don't know exactly what the pattern they are, but they're from Spike Lee, the movie director, who is also a huge Knicks fan. And he had some sort of pattern. I don't know if it was from one of the movies or whatever, but it was on sale. And the socks were on big sale for $4 and they were black and orange. And I was yes. So I just got them and I was I'll worry about these later. The current ones I'm wearing for this portion are up socks.
They're cute.
Now.
My socks, since you asked. Her hot pink Christmas kitten socks.
Yep.
They're amazing.
That I got for you. They are a little cat wearing Christmas mittens and a Christmas hat going, little Christmas Santa kitten.
Yep.
Now, Madeline says, also, I brought my fiance tonight who I make listen to your podcast when we're on road trips, which is a lot. What's your favorite road trip you've ever taken, and what snacks do you think demigods bring on road trips? Very, very good question. Favorite road trip? I've enjoyed the coming back and going to Texas that we did for 2 COVID summers.
Yeah, that was interesting because we drove from New York to Texas in 2020 and 2021, and both times we stopped at national parks and hiked a lot, and stopped at my aunt's house and saw her, which was really nice, and it was fun. I mean, it was long, but it was fun. Yeah. The first year that we did it in 2.5 days, no stopping.
Because this was July, August of 2020. So this was like no vaccine, super scared. Like we stayed in a hotel in like Alabama. Like we were trying to like minimize seeing humans. We got we got razzed by the people in Alabama for wearing masks. They were like, look at these bozos in their masks. We're like, you're going to die from the novel coronavirus. So we the first one was a little scarier, but the drive home we like went to Shenandoah. We stayed at this cute bed and breakfast, went on a bunch of hikes. Like that was super fun.
And then the next year we did like the Smokies and Shenandoah, and that was really fun too.
Yeah, I think that's probably my favorite road trips that I've done. As far as snacks, I like to get Wawa chocolate milk because it's so good. If you guys ever find yourself in a state where Wawa exists, their chocolate milk is very good. I'm pretty sure they just take like regular milk and then Hershey's chocolate syrup and then just go and then shake it. It's so good. That's all you need. So I'm a big fan of that. Yeah. You love Peachos.
I love Peachos.
Candy peach rings are your go-to.
They taste better in a car for some reason. I love it.
Demigods, though. What are we thinking? Percy just wants anything blue.
He's snacks.
He's gonna want blueberries and blue candies.
Blue gummies.
Yeah,
like that.
all that kind of stuff. Grover's just gonna want various trash and recyclables.
Yep.
And then Annabeth. What do we think? Annabeth's snack department? I guess
sandwiches.
Oh, yeah, I could see her going for like it would be one of those snacks where it's like a very well balanced thing. Like she's got one of those Tupperwares with like dividers in it.
Love
she's got like a little thing of fruit, a little thing of like baby carrots, like a little cheese for like protein, and then like a little, it's like she has fancy Lunchables basically is what Annabeth has, which I think would be really, really good. Okay, this one is from Quentin Johnson. Hi, Mike and Kelly. Question for you. How would you recommend someone become a spectator of a new sport? For example, I don't watch baseball, but I would love to get into it. Being a fan of the NBA, go Blazers, and the NHL, go Sharks. I would say if you're trying to get into basketball, there's this great podcast called Horse, which is very introductory. I think the key, because I think this can expand for just a new sport. I think this can be for anything. This can be like trying to get into like BTS fandom in your case. I think the key is just finding someone who is very passionate about the thing and then trying to like pick their brain about why they like the thing or what the interesting storylines are. So if you want to get into like WWE wrestling, one of your friends is super into it, like you could ask like, okay, what are all the like plot lines going on? Or for a sport, be like, who's the best team? Who's the worst team? What teams are people talking about? Same thing with BTS. Like what makes each of the members different?
I had no in real life army friends though to ask any questions.
You had me a little bit.
Do nothing.
No, but you still like, even though you didn't have like in real life friends, and it doesn't have to be in real life friends.
Exactly.
Is a good example.
I just watched videos and just started trying to see what it was like. As far as sports, the only sports that I had become a spectator of that I wasn't previously a spectator of is because you wanted me to watch them. And so my advice would be to date somebody who wants you to watch their sport.
I don't know. I think there's no wrong answer of like how to get into it, but I think the easiest way to get into something new is like trying to find the passion.
Oh, try to play it.
Yeah, hey.
That'd be fun.
You could try to play it. You just try to watch it for sports, like going live. Like that's always fun. Like I love taking people to sporting events when they don't know what's going on and just like having them sit next to you and ask them, like it's so fun. Like I took Gabriel Urbina to his first ever MLB baseball game and he was just asking me like, okay, this might be a bad question, but like, how do they know who's on their team or not? Be like, well, only one team is wearing gloves at one point in time. He's like, oh, right. Yeah, got it. Okay. So I think that's always fun. I'm always happy to like answer questions about it. That's always a fun outing too.
Sometimes you wait for the pitch to be over and then you answer.
Well, yeah, I would like to not miss the action in order to explain to you what's going on. Because I don't want to be like, yeah, so Giannis Antetokounmpo, and then he does a windmill 360 dunk when I'm not looking. So I can't miss that. Okay, this email has a whole bunch of questions in it, and I think it's like, we'll see how many we can do. This is from Emily Roth. There's a lot of questions. Now that you've read the first chapter of the Battle of the Labyrinth, what are your predictions for the rest of the book? How's it going to play out? I've not read anything past chapter 1. I couldn't tell you. My only guess, since it is the Battle of the Labyrinth, and since book 3 ended with Pan saying something about I await you, and I know that Pan's Labyrinth is a movie that I've not seen, I would assume that Pan is going to be in the Labyrinth. That's all I got. I don't know. The only thing I would say is like, unfortunately, I feel like because we do have the unresolved thing of Nico kind of running away, I feel like we're going to have to deal with like Nico not joining Luke's side, and that worries. Or if he is, like, I feel like there's going to be some sort of situation there. And then if we are going with my prediction, which was proved to be correct, but I don't know exactly how it has shaped out for Bianca, We know that their dad is Hades, but we don't know exactly where she is. I think she got kind of yoinked out of there, kind of like Sally did right before dying. So I feel like that could be something. But I don't really have any sort of guess of like what the quest is. I don't know what the labyrinth is gonna do. I don't know in Greek mythology how the labyrinth comes into play. So I don't know. I thought the Minotaur was a thing in the labyrinth. So maybe the Minotaur comes back. Has it been long enough for him to come back being destroyed in the first book? So those are my initial Battle of the Labyrinth thoughts.
Let me tell you my thoughts on the whole book.
The next question is Rachel Elizabeth Dare. How is her character going to be involved or not in the book? I don't know if she's going to go on the quest. She might, but I do think she's going to be involvement. I hope it's more than just like the conduit for Percy and Annabeth having relationship issues. I feel like I would hope she has more than that, but I think that could be a factor. But I wonder if she eventually will become some sort of like, I don't know if she'll be like a liaison to the mortal world, but like we do know that mortals have gone onto the dark side of helping out the bad guys like they did in book 3. So maybe she can kind of help like maybe mortals join the good side and maybe they kind of change their policy about being so secretive. That feels like a very lofty thing for Rachel Elizabeth Dare. And you are using every muscle in your face to not show any emotion.
Just like I'm alternating between nothing, smiling, nothing, not smiling.
We'll continue with Prediction Corner. What loose ends from the last book do you think are going to come back or get developed further? So I kind of touched on that with like Nico, Bianca, maybe Rachel, some more. You were very excited when the Nemean Lion returned in book 3. What other creatures or monsters would you like to see again in this book? I don't know if there's any other creatures that were like barely hinted upon in the way that the lion was. So I'm not sure if there's any like, oh, there's that weird thing we haven't seen. I obviously want to see more of Rainbow. I want to make sure that Bessie is okay. I want Blackjack to make a return because I love Blackjack a lot. So I think now it's more of like, I want to see our old friends come back. I don't know if there's any like new or barely hinted at friends to make a return. I know, like, character-wise, like, Tyson taking a book off, like, get me Tyson back on this quest. Come on. Too many books without Tyson. The next question, will Annabeth and Percy ever go on a date? Yes. If so, where will it be? Oh, man, I don't know. It's like, Paris. That's better, yeah. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be, I would love the storybookness of, like, this book starting with a failed date. I would love if the book ends with them, like, stumbling into a date where, like, they save the world and like something happens and then they're just like alone and then maybe like the rest of the people are like, you two go have fun. And then they like do something wherever they end up. I think that could be fun. Even if they just like end up back at camp and they just like do like a romantic like beach type thing along the Long Island Sound. It could be really cool. Like they go up to like Montauk where Percy used to go with Sally or something like that. Oh. That could be really fun. If you had to, if you had to have JK or Uncle Rick come on the pod, who would you choose? Obviously, Uncle Rick. I have a pretty strict no transphobes on the podcast policy.
Earlier today, Mike said something like, it really sucks that there are 2 famous JKs in the world now. And I was like, wait, who's the other one? Because the only one I could think of is Jungkook. And like,
from BTS.
I was just like, who's the other one? And you're like, Rolling? I was like, oh, she's not famous anymore. She doesn't count.
And then the final one, how many hours go into prep and production of your episodes and what's the process like? So it's a lot in reading. That'll take maybe, depending on the length of the chapter, maybe like an hour to read because I like take lots of notes while I read. And then there's probably like an hour total of like working with figuring out who's going to be the guest, scheduling it, setting up all the recording stuff. Recording, of course, takes another hour. Then there's like some post-production work where I clean up the audio. That'll take like 30 minutes or so. Then I pass that off to Sherry, who does the first pass of the edits. And then she goes through, does a lot of really good work on that. Then I just kind of listen to double check and just like make little tweaks, sometimes adjusting things to like get rid of some mouth sounds. She's good about catching them, but like it's one of those things where every time you listen through, like you'll catch more. So it's good to just have like 2 sets of ears on that. Every now and then making like content things or moving it around. But that'll take maybe like 4 hours of work of going through that. And then there's like all the mixing and stuff that I do. So making sure the volume is right, making sure the guest volume and my volume is okay. If there's any other like background noise things I got to add in post-production, like do that. And then it's like exporting the audio, doing a particular exporting thing so that some podcast apps don't do the thing that sparked ASMR Mike's existence, which was like cutting off the end. So now like he's still around, but he doesn't functionally serve a purpose anymore. But doing that sort of thing. And then it's like uploading it, doing the description, website, social media, all that. That's probably another like hour to 2 hours. So I don't know who's keeping track, but like that's probably like the total hours of work.
Short answer
is a lot. And I get really mad when people think podcasting is just like talking and uploading. There's a lot that goes into it. And the pain of it is that with podcasting, especially with editing, the better job you do, the less people think you do because you don't hear all the edits and stuff. So
that's true with every profession. If you don't notice when a building is beautifully designed, you're just like, this is a good space.
Right.
And you don't like, it's the same with any profession. If you're doing your job right, it looks easy.
Yeah. Also, there's like during the week, like not particularly for episodes, but I'm always like, scheduling live show stuff, doing merch, like designing the merch, sending it over.
There's a whole bunch of like business
lots
stuff.
Lots of other things come along with like running a business out of it. Like there's a whole lot that goes into it. So I appreciate that, more and more people are recognizing that it's hard. Okay. Kendra says, we know you've got a lot to ask Uncle Rick, but if you started ranking your possible question list for when in bold, glad you bolded it. That's pretty cool. When he comes on the pod, if so, what's your method? Ranking them, I'm definitely gonna, and this is the joy of me doing transcripts for the show, which helps with like accessibility, but also when I'm doing prep for stuff, I can go to my transcripts and go, what did I say? Because as soon as I finish recording, I forget everything that I've said, and then I'm editing, and a lot of times while I'm editing, I'll be like, oh man, I really hope I make this joke, and then Mike from 4 weeks ago makes that joke, and I'm like, yes, thank goodness. I will go through all the list of those questions and try to figure out what they are. I do think, and this could be recency bias, but I feel like the fact that he referenced podcasts in book 3, which was written in like 2006.
Wow.
I got to ask him, like, what podcasts were you listening to? Because that is so old. Like,
that's a good question.
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be the number one, especially because like if he's going on a podcast, like for the first question to be podcast themed, feels like it would be a nice icebreaker. And it would really set the tone of the interview, which I try to do this in a lot of different interview type things I do. I try to ask people questions that they haven't been asked before because I see these folks at like conventions or I hear them on a lot of different podcasts or media availabilities. They have to answer the same questions over and over and over again, and it can't be fun for them. So I want to make the interview more fun and stand out. So I would want to hit him with a bunch of weird questions, and I feel like this would like absolutely start it off on the right foot.
Yeah.
And it would be relevant, so it's a win-win. Thank you all so much for coming out to the show. This was a blast. Give it up for Kelly for being an incredible guest. Shout out to all the folks at Holocene, from sound to hospitality. It was so smooth. The bar, the food, everything. Give them a round of applause. They made this such a seamless, nice show. Made our lives a whole heck of a lot easier. Thank you all so much for coming out again. Kelly be at the merch table, but as they say, oh man, how do I combine the two endings into this? I still got to figure it out.
You do this every time.
I do this every time. I don't know how to
do the middle one.
As they say when they're having a good time, they say first in Portland, they first say wizard on, but then afterwards, then they say, I'll pursue you later. Thanks for coming out, everybody. If you want to get involved in the community around the show, you can do so on social media. We are at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Facebook also has the spoiler group and the spoiler free group. We also are at reddit.com/r/the Newest Olympian. If you want to take it to the next level, you can get in on the TNO Discord by joining our Patreon by going to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. Speaking of that Patreon, that's where bonus content lives. If you're looking for more TNO content, bonus episodes, director's commentary, monthly live streams, those all live there. And speaking of that Patreon, I want to give a huge shout out to our producer level patrons, Lotta Bartova, Kelsey Gillespie, The Damn Steam Nuggets, Emma Cooey, Vicky Garcia, Ellie Hoskovchova, Veronica Bartova, Haley Hastings, Robin Garcia, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Tuff Beifong, Olivia Y, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Giselle Salvador, Peter Johnson the Twin, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Heather McMillan, Casey Williams, Polly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Bridget Lowry, Josh Sayre, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Wise Girl, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Falcon Joey James, Christopher William Boucher, Lux, Caden Mack, Sam Reeby, Carly Allen, Riley Kiedis, Mary Kelly, Audra, Mackenzie, Mrs. O'Leary, Aaron Wood, Rodith Kalna, Milo Kim, Fred Cabras, Harlan Christ, CC Reeds 23, Sandkopf, Julia Kendall, Emil Oskar Thomason, Noah Bungard, Liz Cardigan, Shatsabobs, Michelle Spurgeon, Zachary Hamilton, Ginger Spursboy, Rachel Bernatowicz, Sarah Neal, Ricky, and Francesca Pacheco. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, spreading it via word of mouth is essential to the podcast's growth. If you think of someone that would like the show, you could reach out to them directly, say, hey, there's this podcast. You love Percy Jackson, listen to it. Or you've been looking for an excuse to read the Percy Jackson books, here's a digital book club. Or you could post about the show on social media, or leave it a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. All of these things really do help, and I appreciate all of you who have done it in the past or will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode, where we will be joined again by Kelly Schubert, and we will be covering a good chunk of Chapter 2 of Book 4. Chapter 2 is very long, so we didn't get to all of it. But until then, I'll pursue you later. Hey, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. So for this segment, I have another audio recording from a lovely beach in Australia. I'm honestly not sure exactly where I recorded this one from, but it sounds really nice, and here it is. Thank you so much for listening.